listening to the Mental Summit, your source for all things rock and roll.
This is quite fun.
Yeah, here we are, everybody. We are live.
Yeah.
Facebook Live. Let me check that we are. So I don't want to, say this twice. So how you guys doing?
Doing
Fantastic.
Good.
Awesome. We have a virtuoso, a maestro today. Oh my God, this is such an honor, Sean. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for. Your career is so amazing, But be, you know, let me introduce a little bit the crew here, and then
Okay.
we got. So we have Bobby Dreher from Philadelphia. We have Angel Alamo from New Jersey. Jay from Maryland, Baltimore area, and myself from DC. And I couldn't help myself but start, talking good things about this gentleman here, John Beauvoir. What an honor, what a pleasure, man.
It's a pleasure for me to be out here with you guys.
Yeah, unbelievable. Anybody has a question? Who wants to start, or who wants to do the icebreaker?
Oh, dude, I'll jump right in on this, man. You have any idea how exciting it is for me to have a plasmatic on this show?
My God.
That's like a big deal for me. So, Jean, I just want to start it off where, just keeping it nice and simple with anybody who's familiar with the plasmatics or people who aren't familiar with them. They were fronted by, of course, the late Wendy O. Williams.
Yes.
And I would just love you to start off just simple, talk a little bit about, how you got in touch with those guys and joining the band.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was at the time I was pretty young. I believe I was 18, and I was living in the city. Believe it or not, I was living in Jersey for a minute before that, and I had, unfortunately, my apartment building had burnt down, so I had lost everything. I mean, literally, I was left with the city had given out these checks for $112 or $120 or something. So I went and bought a shot leather jacket, actually on Canal Street. It's all I had. So I was kind of walking around the city, and I ended up finding an ad in the Village Voice. I joined a band called NYN. They were rehearsing this really little crazy loft downtown. I can remember it was really pretty bad shape. But anyways, we ended up doing a show opening for the Plasmatics. I think at my father's place it might have been. So it was a club show. It was like when they were starting out. We did this thing, and the next thing you know, I saw an ad that they were looking for a bass player. I was the lead singer of this other band, but I played bass, first. So I said, okay. I gave the guy a call. We went through quite a while. I'd say a couple of months of auditions. There were a bunch of people on the subway with bass. It was pretty crazy. But one day I got the call, and he says, listen, if you want it, that's it. You're the guy, and, you're not going to make any money for X amount of time. Everything's going back into the band. You're going to suffer. You're going to pay dues, which we did. And then, but the thing's going to explode. We really believed in it. And that's it. That's how I got together with them.
Very nice.
Awesome.
What's one of the memories, or that you can share with us with Wendy? Something like it's funny, or something even if you cannot tell it anyways.
No, I got one that I think pretty interesting. There was a time, that Wendy loved animals, and she was a vegetarian. She actually exercised a lot, where everybody thought that we were out doing drugs and everything. In reality, I was at the gym, she's jogging. And, we had to actually be in shape and be organized to be able to have that mayhem and not die, if you want to know.
Yeah.
But anyways, there was one story where Wendy, decided chickens are getting slaughtered. That's a terrible thing. Right. So we, of course, we all agreed, and we said, why don't we take some chickens on tour? So we literally went to the slaughterhouse, and before they'd be slaughtered, and we picked out X amount of chickens. It was, I'm trying to remember, it's a long time ago. Was it 6 or 7? But gave them names like Gertrude and all kinds of crazy names. And they traveled with us on tour. So they would actually be in the lighting trusts. And then when Wendy would pull out the gun to shoot, the chickens would fall down, just be running around the stage, going in the audience. Nobody ever did anything to him. They just put him back on the stage, and that was it. And it was just a crazy thing. And then we kept him on tour for a while, and we got back home. Unfortunately, we had to give him away. But anyways, I think that was a crazy thing with Wendy. I actually heard her talking about it on KNAC or something not too
Oh,
long
very nice, very nice. Hey guys, Angel, Bobby, anybody a question?
Yeah. So, going in, Little Steven.
Okay.
That whole era. Look, I could talk everything. Crown of Thorns, which blows me away, but the whole
Thank you.
Little Steven
Thank you.
thing. I remember seeing the video on MTV. Gosh, mid-late '80s, and how that relationship started about.
Okay, that was early 80s actually, because I joined Steven right after the Plasmatics. And when I left the Plasmatics, I didn't want to play with anybody. I wanted to just do my solo thing. I was really, adamant about it. And I had gotten some pretty good offers. I had a Prince offer, which was great. I was close with Billy Idol and Steve Stevens, and I was trying to help them find a bass player. They're like, "Why don't you just play?" I said, "Nah, I want to do my own thing." So anyways, a manager that I had, I don't want to make this too long-winded, but a manager that I had when I was really young, 14 and 15, who actually had taken me on tour with Gary U.S. Bonds. I was his musical director, really young. Well, it just so happens this Gary U.S. Bonds was managing the same guy, Gary U.S. Bonds. The only difference is little Steven Van Zandt and Bruce Springsteen were producing his new album.
Very cool.
Okay, which had that list. This little girl is mine. Remember?
Yeah.
That was number 5 or something. Completely resurrected his career. So, anyways, this manager said, "Listen, I think it'd be a good idea for you to meet Steven." They were kind of working on this record. I had this loft, down in 30th Street, where I kind of had a little rehearsal thing and stuff. He said they could use your loft for pre-production, and I think it'd be a good idea for you guys to just hang. We did that. I got together with Steven. We got to know each other. I played him some of my stuff, and we got along really well. And he actually told me, "Listen," every record company had turned me down, by the way. Everyone. They said, "You're leaving the Plasmatics. You want to do a solo record and sing?" That's pretty funny. Anyway, so that's where things were left at. And then Steven said, "If you come play with me for a while, I'm taking a little break from Bruce. It's going to give you a different credibility. People will look at you and say, okay, well, this Plasmatic guy is playing with Springsteen guys and playing with all these great studio musicians." And he says, "And things will change. Your perception will change. And then after a while, you'll get your deal." So I actually ended up playing with Steven. And he became, a great friend. And it was just a really cool thing. And very opposite to the Plasmatics, but I really dug it too, And did that, and from then on, Steven and I became close friends. Finally, I had to leave because I had to do this solo thing, which maybe you'll get onto at one point. But yeah, and then that was it. And Steven, that's how we met, and that's how I ended up having that long thing with Steven.
I'll make this a two-parter. Now, when your solo career came out, very influential. It was you, Terrence Trent D'Arby. There were a lot of people, and it seemed like that whole genre was just really starting to break, And did you feel that there was a lot of competition because, everything was based on? Was it purely by association because you were with Wendy, or? MTV was looking for the pretty boy?
I'll tell you, at that point, that's what, there was a lot of racism at radio and at MTV, and a lot of people didn't talk about it, but MTV, refused to put anybody black on MTV. I think I may have been the first one in that Little Steven video in 1981 or something that you mentioned, right? That was 81, 82, right then. They wouldn't play Michael Jackson. So, the company president just said, "That's it. This is enough of this. And, you're going to start playing some of these videos or we're going to pull everything." So it was like a big deal, and it was the same thing at radio. So, like you said, there were a few of Terrence, Prince, me, and you knew there were only a couple of slots, maybe one, to actually slip in and get in there. And so everybody was kind of vying for that slot. So it was a kind of crazy competition thing that was going on back then. And, so yeah, it was crazy.
Cool. All right.
I got a
Yeah,
question.
Angel. There you go.
Um, Hi, how did you get the chance to work with Paul Stanley? How did that come together?
Okay, that's also a good one. That's also a good one. Well, we used to, Paul and I had some things in, I guess in common at the time. We used to love to go to like discos and other clubs that were kind of opposite to what we did. I think it was influential. We just liked the same thing. I loved Motown, like the dance, all kinds of things like that. So one day I was at a club called Heartbreak. And this was, I believe, I might have just left the Plasmatics or I was just about to go. And Paul walked over and said, "Hey, you're that guy, Jean, from the Plasmatics." I said, "Yeah." He says, "I'm Paul Stanley from Kiss." And of course, at that point, they were still doing makeup. So you wouldn't really know that it was him. And so we started talking. We talked about Plasmatics, Kiss, and we just, got along. We just yapped, and then we exchanged numbers. And we said, "Okay, let's hang." And then that's it. I think for like the first year, we never even did any music whatsoever. Never picked up a guitar. We just went to clubs. We'd go here. Whatever. Just friends, just hanging out like a lot. And then about a year later or so one day we were just hanging in his house and he just picked up a guitar and then we started playing and boom, there comes Thrills in the Night. And that was the start of that side of the relationship.
Very cool. I have a question. I have a follow-up question because this year or last year, you guys wrote a song together for Lordi the band, and actually
Yeah.
I have that as a background. I can put that song as a background so we all can listen to it. But tell me, how was that experience? How did that come up? How come you guys got to work with this other band and write a lyric together for them?
It's a pretty cool story. Actually, a friend of mine, a guy named Darren Dewish from Australia, had introduced me to the Lordy guys. I'm talking about years ago, like 3-4 years ago, and said, "Listen, you guys really need to write together." We emailed back and forth. Yeah, we got to write. Yeah, we got to write. It just kept going on for years. We never wrote. And finally, it got to a point where I was going to Finland to do a Kiss Expo, and
Okay.
I said, "You know what? Let me get in touch with them. Let me get in touch with them." And also a girl named Jessica Wolf. And I said, "Let me check out what's going on." I met with them. We started writing. We wrote 7 songs in like 2-3 days.
Wow.
It just was like just worked. And that was just me with them at the time. So, but the record is a concept record where they had to have certain songs that fit into those years of when they would have had that hit. So 4 of the songs that we wrote would have fit into one of the slots. You know what I'm saying? So we only used Scream Demon. We ended up using, and then I suggested this Paul Stanley and I song. This is a song we wrote in like '88 together in
Oh,
LA when
wow.
we were just writing songs to pitch to other artists at the time. It was something completely different, something that Paul doesn't do much of. As a matter of fact, I think they even wrote that this would be the first song that he wrote for another artist that wasn't originally earmarked for either Kiss
Wow.
or his solo record.
Very
So this is an
cool.
old song, like, just like that. And I got really close with these guys, and I called Paul and I said, "Hey, I've got this kind of interesting thing. Why don't we do this and give them the song?" And he's like, "Okay, that sounds cool." It's been laying around since '88, and I knew they'd do a great job of it. And then so I suggested it to them, and that's it. And from there, they went and recorded it. I helped them a little bit on the phone because they wanted to stay as true to the original demo, which
Very
sounded
nice.
very, and then that's it. Next thing you know, their album came out, went to #1, number 13 in Germany. So, and that was the single off of that. So,
Very cool.
very strange coincidence.
Let me put you on just a little bit. I'm not sure if technically you guys can listen to it, but the people who are watching now they will be able to. So let me put it
They'll
on.
be able to. They did a wonderful job. First of all, the band, they're a great band. I love that band. I think that guy Tommy is a genius, and I just I just think they really they're doing something really special.
Cool. All right. Let me. I'm gonna speed up.
It's
There
been
it
a
is.
week since my baby left me, and I'm just sitting here all by myself, wondering where she could be. So if you're out there listening,
All right. So just put a little bit, a few seconds. I couldn't listen to it either. So,
You
but
can hear it. We're like,
no, because it's like I'm telling you, technically, this is crazy. If I Skype, if I send the song to you guys, it will collapse. So I don't want that to happen.
No, we don't want that.
In the middle of a show, too much information through the networks. Anyways, so Jay, you have any other comments? Any questions for Sean?
Oh hell yeah! Because one of the thing about you, John, is I'm such an admirer of your songwriting ability as well as your ability to produce. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you about was you were involved with the Ramones and one of my very favorite songs that they ever put out, which is My Brain is Hanging Upside Down. So,
thank you. I'm glad you dig it.
yeah, dude, but you got to talk a little bit about, just getting to work, with the Ramones and just their writing style versus your writing style.
Okay. Well, originally at the root, I came from that scene, CBGBs, Laxes, living down, that's where we lived, so we all knew each other. The Ramones, Debbie Harry, pretty much everybody, the Baders, everyone from that era. And we used to just hang out. So later on, my manager actually managed a guy named Gary Kurfürst, who passed away some years ago, a great manager. He was one of the first guys to bring Hendrix to America. He just loved unique things. So he's my manager and manager of the Ramones as well. And he said, I think it would be interesting. Why don't you produce the next Ramones record? And he had already spoken to them, and they were like, okay, yeah, that would be interesting. I thought that, like you said, the styles, I like to do a lot of keyboard stuff, melodies, a lot, but at the same time, I always loved punk and the speed and the power of that. So, yeah, I think I combined some of those things. It was interesting with the band because they were really strong-minded. So you had like Joey loves strings, he loves pianos, he loves all melodic things. So he'd be calling me up, Sean, do you think we could do a piano song? Or, dude, I love that string. Could you keep that string? Then Johnny would go up and say, no strings, no piano, no keyboards. This is a punk band. So you had to literally, talk to this one, talk to that one's girlfriend, talk to everything. It was a whole psychology thing you had to have happen to produce this band. And to actually get everything across with the record company telling you, I don't care what you're going through. You just better make it sound good and make it right. Same with the manager. But in the end, I think it worked out. We tried to keep a lot of the songs really true to themselves and true to what it was, some punk songs, like Eat That Rat, songs like that. And with Bonzo, got a little melodic through some keyboards, some bells, and things. Just kind of what I felt I heard in the song. It's not something where it's preconceived. Ooh, I'm going to throw keyboards. I'm going to throw a bell. It's kind of like, you're producing them. You get the riff and everything down. All of a sudden, I hear a bell there, a little melody. I stick it in there and try to make it fly with the band. But they were very, agreeable with pretty much everything.
So, Jean, I look at your catalog. It's so eclectic. I mean, you go from everything from punk, and then you got a monkey wrench in here too, because all of a sudden you see NSYNC.
I know.
And I go, but it's amazing your catalog from Nona Hendrix to
she's wonderful. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing but Doro, and
yes,
then
I love her too. Yeah,
John Waite. Just incredible catalog you have here.
Well, thank you. Now I'm working with there were some other people in my mind that I felt I really wanted to work with. Lita Ford. So I just did a song with her for her new record, and hopefully everything's going to go great with it. But it appears she loves it, and it's really good for this new album she's making, which is going to be really fantastic. She's a real talent. Doro, the same. She's really talented. I did this with the collection and Crazy Lordy guys. So I picked a certain amount of things that I wanted to do. Another girl named Jessica Wolf. I actually doing a little work with Brittany from Vixen.
Wow.
So I kind of went on a little songwriting binge this year because I wanted to add like 5 more things, like, now also of people that I thought had, like Lordi, Finland, they put that country on the map. So they're going to be forever. And Lita, I think, is, one of the best and most important metal female guitarists out there. So I think that was really important for me to have in my catalog. You know what I mean?
Love Lordi. Those guys are amazing.
Yes, they are.
Such a unique show, such a unique style and stuff like that. I mean, I'm also a big fan of just in general a lot of what comes out of out of Finland in general, because I'm also like a big kind of goth and roll kind of guy. Mm-hmm. So besides being a huge fan of Lordi with their entire catalog in my guest room, same thing goes for him as well as the 69 Eyes. I'm a lunatic for the 69 Eyes, and I actually think that I think you and Yerky could actually do a lot of fun together if you guys ever able to sit down and write.
And do so. Yeah, it's fun to collaborate like that. It's just fun. NSYNC, you mentioned, just kind of came out of nowhere. I was working in, that one came out of nowhere. It was after Crown of Thorns, and the president of BMG, a guy named Hardwick Masuk, had gotten in touch with me, and he said, listen, how would you feel about coming to Germany and just working with artists over here for a while? He was BMG Publishing at the time. So, and I was just leaving EMI, I believe. So actually we made a deal where I'd spend X amount of time in Germany and work with different people over there. And at the time, all the Britney Spears, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, all these bands would go through Germany, through Sweden. They'd have the success around the world first, and then they bring them into America. So I was on the team that was, it just so happens NSYNC came my way. And that's it. So we ended up doing that, and and then they turned out to be, they sold a lot of records, and they were good. They were talented. You see Justin Timberlake still kicking ass out there.
Right? Those troll movies aren't hurting them too bad.
That's right. Exactly.
So, but you're, getting back, not to step on anybody's toe, but you mentioned that, but from the music end, you went from television and movies. I mean, you seem like you're very sought after on that end, and you're not pigeonholed to one genre or one facet of media either.
Well, that's interesting, and it's a very good point. And I see that as a positive, but not everybody does. I'm saying, because sometimes they'll look at like, you rock this, or you that, or you this, or you that. Me, it was always a goal, even young, that I wanted to have simultaneous careers. I said I want to be a producer and known as a producer. I want to be a writer, known as a writer, and also as an artist. Let me see if I can accomplish. Everybody has their personal goals of what they want to try to reach. And so that's kind of how I felt about it. I wanted to try to get all three. I didn't tour as much as I should have, maybe, during the solo years and stuff like that. Sometimes it's hard to keep the balance. You're in the studio or you're doing this, but I tried to keep the balance of doing a little bit of all of it and trying to make it all work. Cool. It's kind of for your legacy when you die. People can look back and say, well, this is what he left behind.
Hey, Sean, I have one question. Did you happen to work for Prince, or that's a myth?
No, it's not a myth. I didn't work for Prince, but Prince was the first guy to offer me a solo deal.
Oh, wow.
So as soon as I left the Plasmatics, I got a call from his manager at the time, and he said, listen, Prince wants to sign you to a solo deal, and we want you to play bass with him for the next album.
Wow.
And he knows you want to do a solo record, so he's willing to do a solo situation too. And at the time, as we talked about a little before, everybody was worried about who was trying to knock out the competition.
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying? So at the time, which when I look at it again, because he's approached me, several times. When I look at it again, I kind of regret it. When he died, I really felt bad, and I said, I should have probably done it. Maybe he was just wanted somebody to be able to collaborate. Maybe it was a way for him to get his rock. See, he was a great rock guitarist, for example. He always tried to push that on people. But people looked at him for what he was, and when he did that, they were kind of like, oh, he came on tour, he's playing all that guitar. But that really meant a lot to him. Wow. So maybe this would have been a way, because he knew I was really a rocker, for him to express himself in a different way without tainting his thing. Maybe.
Very cool. And what do you learn from him? Is there something that you say, "Oh, I learned this that was very important in my career"?
Well, I mean, well, sometimes, well, I'm not going to say it was a deathly mistake because you never know. I mean, like I said, we had situations like that. Same with Michael Jackson. I had an offer from Michael Jackson to do a video. I think it was a Dirty Diana video. I have to go back and see which one it was. But we also said no, my manager, because he said, once you get pigeonholed as Michael Jackson's bass player, that's it. You know what I mean? You're not going to, it's going to be very difficult to get out, especially the way you look. And, that's what's going to happen. And I think he was right in that particular case.
Cool. Hey, guys, anybody else?
We got questions from fans.
Cool.
Oh, good. Okay.
Let me go. Jay, Lauren says hi. A fan wants to know, talk about your work with Voodoo X.
Okay. Voodoo X came about. This was after my second solo record. I made 2 solo records, and I kind of felt, I almost want to say lonely, because with my records, I did a lot of the stuff myself. So sometimes I'd sit in the studio completely alone for months on end making a record, and that can get pretty lonely after a while, So I kind of felt like I wanted to have a more of a band ambience thing, and also I had been spending a lot of time with my Uncle Max in Haiti, and my Uncle Max is a voodoo priest. A world-renowned voodoo priest. And I don't know, you can look him up. His name's Max Beauvoir. Max Beauvoir. And you'll see that, he's credited with bringing the zombie craze back to the world. He was involved with The Serpent and the Rainbow was about, basically people going down to see if zombie powder is real. That's what that film and the book were actually about. And the book, if you look at it, Serpent and the Rainbow, it talks about how these scientists went down, spent X amount of time to try to discover this zombie powder and see how it could be used for space travel, for all kinds of things. Anyways, it got pretty deep. But anyways, all that said, it's a religion. It's a beautiful religion. So my uncle was kind of like, it'd be great if you could somehow help to show this to the world and have to, show the world that this is a beautiful thing, voodoo. It's a beautiful religion. So that's exactly what we did. I got together with Uwe Frank Peterson from Nena in Germany. And he was a very creative guy, great keyboard player, loved big ideas like I do. And we started putting things together and, wrote the first song, brought in Tommy Lafferty, who played guitar on it. And it was The Awakening. Song turned out really well. We played that for record companies. And next thing you know, Sony came right in and said, that's it, we want it. And then there was the birth of Voodoo X.
Very cool.
But it was kind of an homage to the voodoo religion and to my uncle, the concept of the record.
I got another one from a fan. Feel the Heat is a great song. Did you like the movie Cobra?
I think they're insinuating they didn't. Actually, I did like the movie. I always had a comment that, you always saw Stallone as an underdog, and I think that's the charm. And it took a while because now the movie has become a real cult classic to the point where they're actually discussing making a TV series out of it. So it took a while for people to see him in that other role as the cop, as the guy who's on top instead of the poor Rocky who's losing everything. At least that's my opinion, So I like the movie for what it was, but yeah, that's how I kind of felt about it. It took a minute for me to get used to them taking a different role.
Mark wants to know, what kind of wristwatch are you wearing? That's what they're asking.
That's funny. Oh, you can see it. It was made by an interesting guy here. I don't know if you can see. Can you see it in there? Okay. Did you notice the skull?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There it is. So it's pretty. Very
cool.
Interesting you noticed that. Very interesting you noticed that.
That's how we know they're watching.
There it is. Yeah, they're watching. Really watching.
how was it writing with Paul Stanley? The writing process with the songwriting.
I always enjoyed writing with Paul. We right from the beginning. It was like I said, we have a lot of things, similar in our mind. Just things that I don't know. Just for some reason, there are just a lot of things that are similar between he and I. And when we get down in the room and just start playing, it just usually just comes really easy. I mean, the only thing is Paul can be very, I mean, he's a stickler. He's a perfectionist about stuff that he does. So even a lot of people think like, oh, kids, writing about girls, hanging, and there's no, they probably write those lyrics in 5 minutes. If only you knew how long
we love those lyrics.
Those lyrics. You have no idea. We would write the song. The actual song might be written in, I don't know, 20 minutes. Then we could sometimes sit on the phone, laying going, uh-oh, uh-oh, nine. But you know what I'm saying. We'd sit on the phone toying with things to find out what really worked and what Paul felt was comfortable and right for Kiss. So that was, sometimes challenging, but it was always fun to write with them. We always came up with some really good stuff, no matter what we did, whether for Kiss or other things.
And you got to play on a couple of songs on the Asylum record.
That's right. I think altogether it was like 7 songs between the 2 albums. Which wasn't discussed originally. So when I did this, it wasn't like, oh, John, okay, you're gonna play bass on a Kiss record. It was more casual. It was Paul and I would hang out. Like I said, we were friends. So at this time it was LA at the time, wasn't it? Yeah, when I first was New York, then LA. But it'd be like, okay, so what are we gonna do tonight? Oh, we're gonna go to this club. Okay, but you know what? I'm in the studio from 5 till 10. Why don't you come by there, hang out, and then we'll go on dinner or we'll go there. That's what I do. And then when I got there, say, that song. Why don't you grab the bass? You want to play a little something on that? And Gene would be like, yeah, Beauvoir, yeah, why don't you play it? And that was it. And that was pretty much it. I'd actually, I'd just play it and they'd show me what it is, or unless it was one of the demos, like All Night, where they liked the feeling that I had put on the demo, and they wanted to keep it that way.
Very cool.
But they were cool about it. Everybody was cool about it. It's an honor.
Nice.
It's an honor, especially now I look back at it. It's a real honor.
I have one question. If somebody has another question, let me know.
Yeah,
jump in after you.
I just don't want to, be disrespectful to my colleagues here. But anyways,
no.
For true or false, when you were a kid, your parents bought you a drum, but then you had to sell it because it was too noisy and they couldn't take it anymore, and then so that's why you started to play other instruments.
That's true.
So funny. How was your childhood? Learning music. Was it cool? Was something that it was difficult? Because of whatever reason.
Well, it started out easily. Like I started really young. Like I said, I played saxophone, I played guitar in jazz band and in school, all kinds of stuff. But I started with drums first, like I said, and my dad threw those drums out when he finally got enough of the sound. So I moved to bass. My brother had a bass laying around, and I just grabbed that and started practicing. And I was really, intense about it. I would practice and practice and practice. I learned a lot of things quite, fast. So I moved from there, and then I started a junior high school rock band. So my school, very similar to what School of Rock is now. My math teacher and I started a class after school. He had opened for The Who with his band once, and that was kind of his claim to fame, and he always wanted to stay involved. So we started this rock band. We'd have like 3 singers, a couple of bass players, guitar players, drummers, etc. after school, and then we'd play at the dances and stuff like that. Next thing you know, I ended up moving from bass to guitar. I was the lead singer, but just depending on what we had and what we didn't have, I'd move to that instrument. So that's kind of how the whole thing started. And from there, we started playing at clubs really young. And I lied my age. I told them, oh, I'm 18 and everything. And he said, fine. And, that summer, we went and played in clubs, but my parents were very much against it. It got to the point they loved it at the beginning. My father said, "Wow, it's great. He's such an entrepreneur. He can learn all these things." And then one day he said, "It's interfering with schoolwork. The only thing I think is important is doctor, lawyer, engineer, and everything else is bullshit." So it's either one of those. He says, "Tomorrow when I come home, I don't want to see one instrument in this house."
Wow.
Just like that. Next
Wow.
day. So my mom was really upset about it because she didn't want to see me leave. And she said, "So what are you going to do?" I said, I'm going to leave. And so I was 15. I left, and that was I left and ended up living with a guitar player that I had who was 21 or 22, and he lived behind a church. He was a groundskeeper.
Wow.
I rented a place from him and lived there. And I didn't see my father for 7 years.
Wow.
So until, or even more, until Feel the Heat. So so that was the childhood. A lot with the kids. We played school dances, a lot of support from kids, school kids, all that stuff. But the parents, they didn't like it.
Amazing, man. What a
Jean,
story. What a story.
Let me ask you about, we'll go on style and culture. So you're playing with Wendy Williams. Hairstyle. What made you flip the mohawk? Because the only other person that I really seen rocking, he's probably listening right now as a friend. You probably know Doug Pinnick. When Doug did Over My Head.
Of course I know Doug.
Yeah, Dougie's great. So
he's a good guy.
You two made it fashionably cool in the 80s to have a mohawk, go out there. But what made you go, I'm going to do this?
God, it was we were talking 1979 at this point. And I'd always done crazy things. I'd have like a skunk look in my hair or something different. I always kind of wanted to be on the edge. I was kind of rebel from the get-go and always felt you wanted to do something different. And then when I joined the Plasmatics, Richie had a mohawk at the time. He had a blue mohawk. And for I just said, I think I'm going to shave off the sides. I think a white thing going on. And I'm going to do the mohawk. First, I shaved it all off. Did bald for the very beginning of the Plasmatics. I said, nah, that's too. I just look like a bouncing M&M. So I said, I got to do something else. So I said, try this mohawk. And then I just did that. It was difficult for years, man, because you were trying to make your hair blonde, and black people didn't know how to make their hair but blonde. They'd try it and they would turn orange and burn off. So you had to actually go through these different things I get from the beauty salon and mix them and do this to actually get it to become as white as I got it to get. So that was a lot of work in that there. So anyway, that's how the whole thing came about and started. Yeah, and
very cool. So who were your biggest musical influences? You were coming out, was it look, I'm a big fan of the Bad Brains, and HR's amazing, but the Afro punk scene, who were some of the people who really motivated you then?
Well, I'll tell you the truth. When I was that young, I didn't really know of an Afro punk scene because Bad Brains was around, but they weren't that familiar. It was more, like I said, the Ramones, the Debbie Harrys, more of the mainstream people like that. I was listening from the beginning, from everywhere from the Beatles to Led Zeppelin, Kiss. I liked for the whole imagery of the whole thing. That always got me. I just thought that they were sensational, visual artists. And I always liked visual art, and I said that is it to the maximum. I mean, down to the detail of every, button on the shoe. You know what I'm saying? I think it's done really well. Other things I like, Led Zeppelin, all these different bands. Eric Clapton, because I was playing guitar, so I played to a lot of these things. Some Hendrix, and it was very wide because I listened to a lot of Motown too. So I was listening to Michael Jackson and other things, and using a broom in the living room, spinning around when my parents went home. And so it was very wide. I liked all kinds. It's the same now. I like all kinds of music. One day I can sit around just listening to something classical. Next day I can listen to an album of just film soundtracks. Next day I'll listen to Ozzy. Next day I'll listen to a punk thing. It really depends on my mood, and it's all up there in my mental Rolodex, as I call it. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
Definitely, John. Oh, go ahead, Andrew. Why don't you go ahead?
No, we had another fan question. Just want to say thank you guys for listening and submitting your questions. We're listening to them. She wanted to know, what did you work on with Lionel Richie?
It's a song called I Want to Know, which was actually for my record. So he came, I had an idea. It was for my record, Chameleon. So I was just working my studio. I lived in LA at the time, and I was in Malibu, and I was just hanging out, working in my studio. And one day I just called him. I said, I got this idea. And believe it or not, he just jumped in the car. He said, I'm coming over. And he just came running over. I said, okay. And then we just started working on this song. And we worked on it through the night, contributed some great things to it. And then I ended up, putting on my record.
Cool.
I Want to Know is the name of the song. So you can find it.
Yeah. Like, John, one of the things, kind of piggybacking a little bit off of what Bobby was talking about with, like, your style, your influences and everything like that. One of the things I thought was actually kind of cool and kind of interesting, if you'd want to talk about, is you touched earlier on in the interview, like, this panel, all of us, we're like such a family and open to everything. And the one thing I find so interesting about you is you're so literally open to everything and everybody. Like, there's nobody that you don't seem to want to work with, or you don't like this, that, or the other thing. And you touched earlier on in the interview about dealing with some racism through MTV, just because times were different at that time.
Oh, yeah.
Is there anything that you can talk a little bit about, if there was anything in particular that you had to get over, any challenges that you're willing to talk about that you had to deal with? Because, again, your catalog is so extensive that you've been so in demand so long now. But I'd love to hear a little bit about some personal challenges that you had to deal with as the times changed throughout your career.
Yeah, it's actually funny when I think about it, because it makes you kind of feel old that you've seen so much and so much change. Let's say when I was with Gary U.S. Bonds, at that time, I was, I had an afro and this and that. I was the little black bass player, musical director. We were driving through the South. That was not pleasant. It got to the point where literally I couldn't get out of the bus or anything like that to go get stuff at truck stops, because it would cause a major hassle, and didn't, so that was already problems there. But this kept going right through the Plasmatics. When I joined the Plasmatics, I felt there was a great avenue, because I always believed in kind of racelessness. I mean, that was the kind of thing with the blonde mohawk. It's like, I can be black, I have a blonde mohawk. I really supported be who you want to be. Just do you. Be yourself, because that's, to me, that's what makes leaders in the world. When you have different people that are willing to go out on the edge, then that opens that door, and then that opens that door, and everybody can contribute in one way or another. Each of you guys are contributing in a way, because you all look different. You all have a different vibe. You got your glass, and you got your thing going, you got your beer. You know what I'm saying? It's all about being who you are.
I love that.
Okay. As far as I believe. So then when I joined the Plasmatics, it was also bad, because we'd travel around. But at the same time, what I liked was that the first shows, there were no blacks in the audience at all. Then I'd see 4, then I'd see 10. And I saw that what that really did, or Mexicans, or this, that there are a lot of people who feel that they have a peer pressure, that they have to stay in a certain place. Blacks grow up with hip hop. That's their thing. That's what all their friends listen to. They know nothing about rock. They're completely oblivious. You know what I mean? For the most part. But then again, there's so many that are into rock, but they're hiding. They're sitting at home. I did it's like the Wendy Williams show. She was saying I was one of those, hiding in the background. I remember listening to punk stuff, listening to Plasmatics, but I would never tell my friends, because, that would give me problems. So I watched that all change. I watched going through the South problems. We had racist problems like that. Like, I couldn't get in trucks, stop people trying to cause fights because of the way you look. I'd walk through New York. Even, this is going through my solo record. This even walked through New York in Times Square. I'd try to go to a movie with the girl. I'll forget it. You'd always have to have some guy who has to get up, oh, it's the Black Tina Turner, or some comment in the middle of the theater that's gonna embarrass you. And I went through this ever. Cabs wouldn't stop for me. They tried to kick me out of my building in New York City. My lawyer got a letter saying he's scaring people in the elevators. He's got to move.
Oh my God.
My lawyer told him, and this was right after Plasmatics. Plus, that's a little Steven. And no, later, going towards solo. And then you end up on MTV, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, we want an autograph." So it's pretty funny how that changed. 1 minute they want to kick you out, the next minute they want a picture.
Wow.
As soon as they think, "Oh, he's famous," oh God, then everything changed. And then actually, as I got more success, things changed. And you could just see it change, and also society was changing quite a bit, because if you remember, like we say, this is what, 1980, there were no blacks on MTV, right, at all. And then what, 15, 20 years later, you couldn't get them off. There's nothing but hip hop. You were like, please play a rock song. One. Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
You're totally right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Hey guys, very quick, I want to
YouTube.
say thank you to all the people who are watching. Matt Porter, Lauren Trahan, Alex Growin, Jenny Switzer, Ariela Jackson. I'm sorry, my accent, man. Mark Robert Ware, my friend Julie Westner Ullman, Janine, everybody else, Jan McCurdy, my brother Jan. Thank you so much for joining us, and everybody else. We have a lot of people watching, and I'm very happy tonight. That we are talking to Sean Beauvoir. What a pleasure, man. We are about, we have about 5-10 more minutes. Chan, is that okay with you? Like we go through a short run of questions. If you have something, guys, that you want to.
I have a question. When it comes to again, it's like a two-part question. When it comes to playing bass, do you prefer the 4-string, 5, or 6-string bass? What's more comfortable for you to play?
I prefer 4. Just in general. I know there's a whole 5-string thing that came about, but I was not really, I can play a 5-string, but it's not what I'm most comfortable with. I like the 4-string bass. I did have an 8-string bass in the Plasmatics for a minute. It was a Kramer, and that thing had, basically octaves, but it didn't quite work because it sounded like a guitar. It's just like, it was so loud, and it was pretty interesting, but it was just too much. So I went back to the business.
What advice would you give to any aspiring bass players, like as far as how to play or techniques?
Oh, okay, yeah, I will. I'll tell you. I think the hardest thing I've found with bass players is, as good as many are, maybe they don't focus enough on being wide enough to listening to different music. I think different music really makes you an all-around great player. So, for example, I noticed that with my music, I combine elements. I do a lot of strumming, stroking. I just do a lot of that. I have a lot of kind of funky beats that's not always just straight metal. It could be, and all of a sudden, a lot of bass players that I've auditioned or worked with, they get lost, and it's just like, oh no. Matter of fact, they even master plan from the Plasmatics. If you listen to the bass, it's a Motown bass on a punk song. So if you're not familiar with Motown, or if you don't know the feeling of those kinds of songs as a bass player, you're gonna have a very difficult time playing, or even feel the heat. And it doesn't matter whether you went to Berkeley, and I've had amazing people who can't do very simple.
Who was your influence? Were you mentioning Motown? Were you a big James Jamerson guy? Was that It wasn't. I was never really a muso, like, let's say that way, where in that way that you're saying. I loved the Temptations, and they hit songs for, but I'd listen to every instrument, like I still do. I still right now will just a few days ago, I was just sitting around. I'll spend 3-4 hours just listening to, let's say, soul music for a second, and I'll just admire how every verse has different string parts. Everything has changed. Where now we just copy and paste things. Oh, we got our chorus. Move it over here. Song's done. You know what I mean? Where you listen to how those records
they'd have every time they changed, they'd have a different string part, or they'd add something, or it was just so well done. So I learned from that, and for me, my mind just takes it in. I hear those bass parts like we were discussing, and I did all off the beat of things, and it just all registers somehow, and it just goes in. It's almost like you're feeding a mental Rolodex, and then when you need the stuff, you just go, then it just pours back out. So my advice would be, take as much in as possible. Listen to as many different types of music. Yeah. Learn how the reggae guy plays reggae. Learn how the other guy really, you know what I'm saying? The Motown guy does. Listen to some of those Motown bass lines. If you can do all that stuff, the other stuff is going to be simple for you. And then listen to metal. Listen to some of the real fast metal. The more you can do, the better chance you're going to be a real working bass player, because there's actually not that many who are great at doing everything.
Wow. That's a great definition. Hey, Bobby, you wanna continue? Since you asked last, you wanna ask like the final question or your last question, because
Well, I just want to say, it's again just an honor to be here and talk to you. I remember when we did the Kiss Expo up in North Jersey, and you were there and blew my doors off. Again, big shout out to Matt Porter for introducing us there. It was. But your career has been tremendous. I mean, and thank you just for everything from the punk end to all the way up. I just think, I got to say, with
thank you so much
that's going on right now, how are you maintaining a professional business aspect musically?
Okay. Well, I mean, right now I'm kind of at a stage where I've still been finishing up a lot of songs that the songs that I mentioned earlier that I've been working with people. So I'm kind of getting that off my plate. I'm writing a life story book. So, I mean, we're not making an announcement yet, but I have made it for a life story book. So I've got to get that done and delivered within the year, let's say. So it's something I've wanted to do for quite a while. It's a memoirs book. So I've got to start working on that. What else do I do? And so that's pretty much what I've been doing in the studio musically right now, because we don't know what's going to happen. I was supposed to do Sweden Rock Festival, and that was just canceled. So any shows or anything that were planned for this year so far are just going right by the wayside. So I don't know what's going to happen. So we're kind of watching to see where things are going to go, because, it's either it's going to just open up and everybody's going to go running to clubs and concerts again. But I doubt it. You know what I mean? It's like after this scare, people don't want to get together anymore. I mean, so it's really tough for musicians right now if you don't have other things, And luckily I've done a lot of things in my career, and I always do different things. I have a foundation. I have I have a hobby, which is playing around with small yachts and restoring them and selling them, which I love doing because I love the water. So that's it. And then you give your mind a break and kind of think about everything and try to make sure you're on the right path, going the right direction, right? Right now.
Angel, we have a couple of questions from the people.
Yep. Yes, we do. We have two more questions, actually. Speaking of Matt wants to know, what kind of music do you listen to when you're relaxing?
Let me think. Like I mentioned this earlier, but it's really, it really depends. I have feelings like the other day, I just felt like listening to this record called Just Relax Mexico. I mean, believe it or not, it's a guitar player, literally, that's just playing this whole thing of just really beautiful Mexican music. I've been listening to that record for years. Every once in a while, I get an urge to hear it. And it just brings back certain memories, you know what I mean, of certain things that happened. So I'll listen to that. What in the past few days I've been listening to? I've been listening to 70s stations on Sirius. I've listened to soul stations on Sirius quite a bit. That's probably the focus lately, the 70s and, soul stations, the past few weeks, I'd say. And then that could change, and like the Relax Mexico record I told you about, and other things like that. Barbra Streisand, Celine Dion sometimes. And then sometimes I'll throw on something really metal, Metallica, or, or Green Day. I was listening to that record the other day. I just bounce all over the place.
Nice.
But the relaxing, to answer your question, was the just, classical or just relax, or 70s, some of those great old ballads and stuff. Yeah.
And we have Ian, who has a music production question. He wants to know, do you prefer analog over Pro Tools when you're producing?
I'll put it this way. I love the analog sound, and I think nothing can beat it. I mean, I'm not going to say nothing can beat it, because I've worked with some cats in Europe and stuff, some of these guys who do dance pop production, and with headphones, you can make a record sound, better than an analog record, and you're like, what? With a laptop. But in general, you know how analog gives you something back. I mean, it gives you a bounce when you play bass. It gives you something when the kick hits. It's almost like you're looking forward to hear the playback, because you know you're going to get more than you put in, if you know what I'm saying. Nice. You don't get that with Pro Tools or any of the digital recording. You get what you put in there. There's no pleasant surprise. But at the same time, it's a lot more trouble working with. So as a producer, you have a record company that calls you and says, I love that last mix. I want another mix, but I want less vocal and just bring up the background vocals. Analog studio, that's a nightmare. Because that means you have to go pull everything back up. Your engineer's got to remember every single knob throughout that room of where everything was set, and he'll never get it right. Never. No matter what he does. Not SSL, nothing. He'll get it close, but when you hear the mix back, you'll go, it doesn't sound quite the same. And he's going to tell you, it's exactly the same. And you go, no, it's not. So when you have Pro Tools and Logic and these other things, that guy calls you, you go to Logic and you go, 1 dB, 2 dB, file save. Here it is.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned. And I think that's why people have gone to the convenience of digital recording in so many ways. It's definitely got its downfalls. There's no doubt about it. But it was more difficult to be as a professional. And we've done it for years. It was more difficult with the analog space to get back to where you were. It was a little undependent. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Jay, you've been quiet for a long time now. It's your turn, buddy.
Yeah, bro.
Here's a chance.
Oh, it's all good. So I've got two quick things to just like wrap it up for me, because one, I got texted a fan question, so I'm going to start off with that, and then I got something from me. But the fan wants to know, do you have, when it specifically comes to your writing, do you have any influences? I mean, you mentioned the Beatles, you mentioned Zeppelin. Was there anything in particular that contributed to your writing style?
I know I sound very diplomatic here, but for me, it really is the combination. Because when I write a song, it's strange. It just comes. It's like I carry my phone around with the little tape recorder, and there could be nights, 2 months ago, I had a couple of those nights where I was just like walking along the boardwalk, and songs just started pouring in. Literally, I would sing the whole song, all the parts. This is the guitar part. This is the drum part. This is it. This, that. Go to the chorus. Go thing. One. Next, another one just came. 2, I put that one down. Boom. Not with the lyrics, but literally in that day, I think I have 5 songs. So that can happen, and it just comes. Now, where exactly it's coming from, I'm not really sure, but I know it's feeding from. I must be getting this part, violin part, orchestration from somewhere, but it's not specific. It's not like I took this from that. It just comes, however it ended up in my brain from what was absorbed throughout the years. Does that make sense? I know it's a little bit weird to explain. But not to be too diplomatic, the Beatles, yes, everybody who wrote great songs. But me, it was more song oriented, because there are a lot of people who the songs are great sometimes, but the artist doesn't always write great songs. I appreciate the great song. You know what I mean? If you know what I mean, yeah.
Absolutely, for sure. And then again, I've been such an admirer of your catalog and everything, but again, I make no bones about my my love affair with the Plasmatics as a whole. And my thing when it comes to just kicking back to that really quickly is just to with the utmost of respect, were you able to keep in touch with Wendy up towards her passing at all?
Unfortunately, not. The manager Rod really kind of kept her under wraps. But Richie, Wes, and the rest of the guys, we kept in touch for years too. Matter of fact, I spoke to Richie and Stu not too long ago, so we still speak. But unfortunately, none of us really got to stay in touch with Wendy, and she ended up in Connecticut, and then that was it. And we didn't really see her anymore, which is really a shame because I really think that she just started going crazy because doing this music, performing, getting in front of an audience, the adulation, everything that you get back, it's a drug. It's a heavy drug.
It is.
And when it just goes away all of a sudden overnight like that, it's not easy to deal with. Some people just can't handle it. They just don't see a purpose to, shamefully, but you know what I'm saying? It's they don't see a purpose to continue.
Plus, she brought something to the table with those shows that at those times you didn't get, and you to a certain degree don't get, with the exception of maybe a band like Rammstein right now. You don't get those kind of just sheer crazy pyro destruction shows anymore. Yeah. You didn't get them.
I'll tell you, Rammstein, I saw them in Berlin not that long ago. You're right. They're fantastic. I'll tell you, I don't know if you've seen have you seen the new Kiss show?
Yeah. Oh, numerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I thought the pyro was fantastic in that. All that, confetti falling at the end. It was like Vegas, and like twice as much as what I saw in Vegas, actually. It was pretty heavy. I thought they did an amazing show this time. They pulled out all the stops. But you're right, there aren't many people who do that. I mean, how many people do that kind of thing where people really go and they really forget what's going on in the rest of their lives because what they're seeing on that stage just had them so distracted, which was what rock and roll is supposed to be.
Yeah. Talking about that, talking about rock and roll, like Bobby mentioned the Kiss Expo, I think it was a year or two ago in New Jersey, and you play live, right, with Frank Dimino from Angel, Ace Frehley, of course, Lita Ford.
That's right. Yeah.
The drummer was Beanie Appice, I think.
That's right.
What I was next to you, and I that blew my mind, and I love, if you can talk a little bit about this, which is when rockers, when musicians get together and there's no plan, right? So let's rock, they're. How cool is that? Tell me a little about that experience or any experience when you jam together,
I mean, I love jamming with something like that, especially if you're jamming with guys who really have it together or anything. Vinny and I have played together in the past, but it was great. I love to do that. I don't like to do too many unrehearsed things. Some people are, when they say, come do these 3 songs and you don't really know it, you don't want to make a fool of yourself. But it's fun. You get to play with different people, try different things. And a lot of times things will come out of it because people get to see each other play.
But let me tell you something. Rock and roll is not perfect. If rock and roll is perfect, it's not rock and roll. So, whatever imperfections, right? I mean, I love it. It blew my mind. Like, it was so cool. The energy, and I see you up there, and I see, I want to see Sean, in more Kiss Expos, in more, shows performing because it was amazing, man. It was amazing. Unforgettable. When something is unforgettable, that was what happened that night, guys.
That's heavy. That's great.
Yeah.
I appreciate
boy,
that's a big compliment.
Do we got time for one more question? I had to ask this.
Okay.
It's for a fan. Steve Lynch says hello. Great interview.
Oh, how's he doing?
He's in Florida,
I know it's a little delay, but you said Steve Lynch. Tell him I said hi.
Okay.
Give him a big hi.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for listening. That is super cool.
Very cool.
Good friend of the show.
I don't want to mispronounce her name, but if I do, please don't kill me.
Okay.
Ariel Jackson wants to know, what was your favorite solo album to record and or perform?
Drums Along the Mohawk.
Very cool.
Yes. Yep. It was my first album. It's, when you wait so many years to get the opportunity to express yourself on a record like that, because it took years to get that deal. I got turned down year after year. It went on for a while, and then finally, all of a sudden, whoa, Richard Branson, signs me in London, and all of a sudden, I'll tell her in America. It's funny how the music business can flip quick. 1 minute it's a padlock on your door, the next minute you're sitting on a boat with Richard Branson signing a deal.
True. So true. So true.
But it's pretty crazy. So yeah, that was my favorite. Because like for that reason, because it was the first solo album. Is my first. That's what I wanted to accomplish, and it's the first time I, really got the opportunity to do this for myself under my own thing, my own record companies. Yeah, it felt really good. Yeah.
Awesome. So, guys, we are way past our
I know.
hour tonight.
Going.
It was crazy, man. Like Sean, like I could talk for hours and hours with you. It's never, boring. Like having
Well,
a conversation.
same. I enjoyed it. I hope I answered
Oh,
the
this is
question.
great.
Sidetracked a little bit sometimes.
Oh.
Didn't really
Yeah.
answer the question.
Yes, you did. We answered all of the fans' questions. I just
Yeah.
went to double check.
Okay,
Yeah,
good,
I
good,
know, but
good.
again, I want to
Wonderful.
thank
It was a
everybody.
pleasure for me.
I want to thank everybody for watching, and of course, Sean, like, seriously, you're such a, a rock star for us. Like we've been,
Oh, thank
following
you.
your career. We know, like, all like Jay say, your catalog. How many artists you play with. How cool is that? And and tonight, I want to thank you for your support. Because thank
Thank you
you
for yours. Definitely,
for
guys.
artists like
Thank
you. We can have this show going. It's difficult sometimes to arrange for an interview, but you're always there. Such a nice guy. Supporting rock and roll, supporting what we do, which is share this kind of stuff with
I
other
love this
fans.
concept too that you guys are doing, the summit. It's great, and we appreciate it too as artists, and because we need support. If we don't have you guys talking about it, what are we doing? You know what I mean? So it's great. It goes both ways.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
Oh,
guys.
yeah.
Anybody?
Thank you so much, John. This was a real pleasure, man.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. I hope to see you
Yeah.
guys somewhere, someplace soon after all this, whatever
Stay in
happens here.
touch.
I wish you luck. Stay
Absolutely.
safe.
Get you up to Philly.
I hear you. Okay. I see the
Get you up to
studio
Boston.
thing going on back there.
There you are.
Nice.
All right. Thank
All
you
right,
so
guys.
much, John. Thank you so much, everybody. See you
care.
next
Thank you, man. Have a
Wednesday.
great night.
Until next
Thank you.
time.
Yeah, and rock and roll.
Bye.
Take care.
You are listening to the Metal Summit, your source for all things rock and roll.